And welcome to Off the Wall. You are with Greg, and it is my privilege to introduce to you Al Harlow from Prism. How are you tonight, Al?
Very well, Greg.
Good. It's great to have you on the show. And Prism, of course, long-standing icons of Canadian music and still going strong. How are things going with you guys?
Well, I had to pinch myself here. It's kind of better than ever, you know. Our new album is done, and we're just getting the graphics and liner notes buttoned up, and I feel like a 16-year-old kid doing it for the first time.
Well, it's pretty exciting when you can, like you say, after all the years that the group has been together, been performing, and been an entity in music, to feel so young and just so much energy in it.
Well, that's what it feels like, you know. I can't believe that the calendar says what it says, you know. I think there is some truth in that playing music does keep you young.
Yeah. Now, Prism goes back, of course, a long way. Comes from a group of artists in the Vancouver area in the late 60s, kind of forming together. I love the quote that you have in one of the interviews I read called Prism, a community type of band. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it was. Many people know that our producer, Bruce Fairburn, came from kind of a jazz fusion band called Sunshine. And on the other side of town, on the wrong side of the railroad tracks, the rest of us were playing in a bit of a bad boy band called the Seeds of Time. But we had a couple of records out back then. And in any case, those two unlikely bands of musicians came together, and I think I called it a community at one point.
That's a neat way to put it. Like you said, there was a lot of artists from the Vancouver area that were just sort of exchanging ideas and getting together. I guess that was really a kind of a fruitful time for music back when everybody was sort of experimenting and sharing their ideas with each other.
Yeah, and I will say that Vancouver has always had that supportive atmosphere. You know, the bands were never wary of each other's success or competitive in that sense. We all wished each other well, you know. So yes, Ab Bryant, who later went on to Chilliwack and Head Pins, was playing bass on a few tracks at the beginning, and Tom Lavin, who went on to form Powder Blues, was there. So yeah, everyone we could get on the phone came along, and we all had to go in the studio.
Well, that makes a pretty exciting time, and you dropped some big names there. You've had the opportunity to work with a lot of great artists along the time. Can you let us in on a few of them?
Sure can. There's been a number that we toured with or shared the stage with, and I guess one that springs to my mind right away, because, you know, when I was a kid, they were our heroes, plus they were also on Capitol Records, which we were too, and that was the Beach Boys. Now, maybe I'm dating myself, but we traveled with them for 4 or 5 months and got to know them pretty well, and then of course there was the initial Meatloaf tour when he exploded all over the place. We were on that tour for about 6 months, and yeah, everybody was really supportive of us there too. So Prism could jump off those big tours and go headline our own shows all across the states at that time. So that's what we were doing. We were kind of jumping on and off the bus as far as doing our own tours.
Well, that really gives a group an opportunity to get exposure to a lot of different genres and a lot of different fan bases too.
It did. You know, that was quite a stroke of genius on the people that were handling us. Bruce Allen was our manager back then, and kind of orchestrated all that activity. But I think we played every single city in the U.S.
So, as to going back into the Prism's archives a little bit, you got on board right around the recording and the release of the See Forever Eyes album, was it?
Yes, although we were playing together in the Seeds of Time band for almost 10 years before that, too. So I was in and out and around, but I was officially in. Bruce Fairburn had been listening to my songs even for the first Prism record, so it wasn't like I was a stranger who suddenly got the job, you know. I think I was on the list even before the thing started.
Yeah, and you know, again, just to mention a few names of some of the people, the Vancouver area at the time was just fertile for musicians, and you had the opportunity to have, well, Jim Valance, who went on to do some recording with Bryan Adams, had some fantastic luck, and they actually, for the Armageddon album, you guys had a piece of Bryan Adams.
Yes, and maybe someday when my book comes out, there was a 5-minute period. I think it lasted one entire day when we were having an internal shuffling around, and Brian was given the phone call that he would be in prison. Now, at that moment, that was a step up for him. He hadn't exploded yet, so and he was certainly a satellite around the band. Yeah, he's playing on some of our albums and doing some background singing, and you know, we co-wrote a lot of songs with Brian back in those days. But you know, going back that far, now, but you know, again, back to that community again. You know, we were all just hanging around trying to make music together.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people think of Prism. I mean, it's been, I hate to use the term a revolving door with the group, but there's been a lot of musicians come in. A lot of people think of the Ron Tabak, Lindsay Mitchell kind of an era, yourself, Rocky Norton and John Hall. But there were a lot of guys coming in and out at the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, on the one hand, the band is definitely a strong identity. You know, there was the definitive membership with Rocket Norton and John Hall, myself, Ron Tabak. You know, I like to say it's the ones that played the arenas and picked up the Junos. You know, but you're right. I mean, on stage we'd have horn sections and sidemen and things like this. So, and you know, that's probably true for a lot of bands as well. But yeah, it's been true for us. You know, I think if you look at a lot of groups, there's people that come and go, keyboard players come and go.
And the one thing, like you mentioned, the one thing that's exciting about Prism's music is that it's not really pigeonholed into one vein. You mentioned you got horns in some, you've got straight rock songs with others, you've got some of the lighter side with others. Very, very spectrum. I suppose Prism is a good name for the group, a real big spectrum of music.
Well, thanks for saying so, Greg. Yeah, and sometimes people have puzzled over that. They say, "Well, now you're not quite metal, and you're not this, but you are that." And I've always simplified that because I think on the insiders camp, our inside view has always been because we're all songwriters, you know, and it's always been a song-based focus, you know, like, okay, here comes a good song, someone's just written a good song, now can we give it our trademark, you know, can we rock it up and make it Prism? So that's always been our trick, is to, you know, locate really good songs and then, you know, roll up our sleeves and do the Prism treatment on that. And
some great music has come from the Prism camp as well. You know, you had the initial success, of course, 4, 5, 6 albums. You've gone double platinum. You've had all sorts of great success. Then there was a bit of a downtime, you know, and a lot of that happens with a lot of groups. But you guys are really starting to come back and look to the future. What kind of stuff has been going on with you?
Yeah, thanks. As you say, every artist has their downtime, even the greats, even the big ones, you know. But yeah, you can only kind of make your splashy entrance once, and then what do you do? But of course, in our case, when our first singer Ron Tabak died, it was full stop for, well, I guess 4 years after that. And although we never stopped touring once we got back together again, we did do an album called Jericho at that point. But yeah, all of a sudden it seems like the retro rockets have kicked in, and there's all this new energy, and you know, as I say, I have to pinch myself. It looks like we got another chapter coming up.
Well, you guys will always be known as classic rock and good Canadian rock, but you're not sitting still. There's a lot of stuff coming on the horizon for you, I hear.
Well, yeah, it's funny when I looked around about 2005. I looked around and the band was really in good shape, and I just felt so strongly. You know, I said, well, we've got to make an album now, you know, because this band has something brand new to offer, you know, and so you know, you have to check yourself as to what are the reasons why would you start again, you know, why would you make an album and a documentary film and all the stuff that we're doing now. And so I really got honest with myself and looked in the mirror and said, okay, we're doing this for the right reasons. And so when I said to the band, okay, guys, we're going back to the studio, it's time to do another album. So all the business people around us, our agents and everybody, the first two questions they asked was, will it be new songs, or are you just going to redo the old ones? And, this kind of thing. And I wasn't ready for that. I thought, in my own mind, it was simple. Well, of course, it's going to be all new stuff. It's a new direction. It's going forward, as you say. But that question kind of shocked me. Like, I thought, well, why would I parody myself? Why would I, do kind of a Monty Python, the Ruttles do the Beatles kind of thing? I thought, no, we're going forward. And then the next question was, well, where are all these songs going to come from? Do you need some songs? Maybe we should go look for some songs. and I just had to say, guys, I've got 12 songs sitting right here. Just relax and enjoy the ride. So anyway, now it's done, and we're all pretty happy with the results.
Yeah, I think the revisiting should really be left for the box sets and that
You're
kind
right.
of thing. Is there anything like that maybe in the works?
Well, there is too. Not many of the fans know that when we recorded the Armageddon album, we actually recorded the entire album twice. So there's an unreleased version still sitting in the vault. And we just did it all over again. As somebody said at the time, that was the world's most expensive demo session. So there's a lot of stuff there. And there's that Live in Detroit record that we did that's gone out of print now, and I've been exploring the rights to that. And, of course, we feel that we've got a live album, a brand new one in this. We have to start recording the shows again. But, yeah, there are some gems. Sometimes when songs get left off albums, it's not just because they're not good enough to make the final chop, but sometimes there's too many ballads, and I think every recording artist and every band has these stories to tell where they had a couple of great songs, but there just wasn't room to fit them on, So I've cataloged all that stuff, and yeah, there are a few diamonds out there that I think deserve to be heard, and we'll see where that goes. The one funny thing, though, that I always want to avoid is that I know in the past our website has been guilty of this too, where you put the outtakes and the box set stuff and the demo versions on the website, but if someone's going to your website in Russia or somewhere on the other side of the world, I always think, well, gee, shouldn't they hear the hit versions first before they start exploring the demos? So we're going to make sure that our new look website that's coming up, that everybody has a chance to hear the definitive versions, that made Prism successful. And then if they dig a little deeper, then we'll have the stuff that we bring out of the vault.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it. I've never really heard of or thought of it that way. And hey, something fantastic for the fans to look forward to, and maybe just I remember hearing rumors about that Armageddon that you had mentioned, and maybe you never know. Now, you had mentioned earlier in the interview talking about some literary work. I know that Rocket Norton was working on a book as well some time ago.
Yes, that was released in October of 2006, and I think it's done quite well. I saw it for sale in some of the bigger stores like Chapters and that sort of thing, and when he was writing it, he got signed releases from all the people mentioned in the book, but he never got one from me. So one day I phoned him and said, Rocket, don't you want me to sign anything? I said, or have you just left me out? And he says, oh, no. He says, you're all over the book. He says, but I don't dare show it to you. He says, I'm just going to put the book out and run and hide.
Oh, yeah, so there'll be a little bit of sneaking going on. That should be pretty exciting.
Yeah, so I said, well, don't worry about it. Just spell the name right. We're okay.
Yeah, and you're working on a little bit of memoirs yourself, you were saying?
Well, yeah, and I don't want to sound cliche here. I know it's kind of the trend these days. I'm not the first to have done this. As you say, Rocket's done it, and I think Ray McGuire Trooper's done it. Ray Davies of the Kinks. There's been quite a few of them that have come out recently. Andy Summers of the Police just did one last year, but I just can't help it. I've got about 300 pages of the journal already done, and in the good old days, my friends and I, who Rocket amongst them, which is where some of his book came from, we used to live in England and Canada and here and there, and we'd write letters to each other, and the letters would be these long, diaries. The idea was to get a laugh out of the other guy, right? So I still have all those too. So I've got some pretty incriminating evidence here.
Yeah, that could make for a telltale. I mean, it's exciting stuff for the fans to read. It gets them a little bit more of an insight into the headspace of the band and some stuff that was going on, and just to get a look at you guys as people and not just the fellows that are up on stage making the music that we all love.
Yeah, and I really thought there were so many amazing, crazy stories back there that you couldn't make this up as fiction, So I thought, well, that's going to be the emphasis of my book. I'm just making turn the page, just from one unbelievable, hilarious scenario to the other. So hopefully I won't disappoint anybody.
Yeah. So now looking at Prism's music, of course, the fans are familiar with the early stuff and up to the Armageddon album and some of the other pieces that we had spoken of. What's on the horizon? What have you guys got planned? What's been in the can now for, you finished a latest release not too long ago, and stuff that's in the future? Can you kind of fill us in on a little bit of that?
Yeah, well, we started writing songs for the next one, but of course this one isn't even out yet. The new one's called Big Black Sky, and as I say, there's some pretty big boots to fill here, I mean, even though it's been a number of years, I mean, but the fans, the people who really know the band, of course, they know that the golden era of Prism with Ron Tabak as lead vocalist and so forth. And I know there's this question out there because, of course, I've been singing lead for about 5 years now, and I sang on all the records too, so it's easy to, get up there and hit the high notes and stuff like that. But I know people in the audience say, "Oh my goodness, you sound so much like Ron," and I always back away from that because I'm not trying to sound like Ron. I'm just singing the songs that that I wrote for Ron, So of course there's going to be some similarities, but of course when you get into the studio, that's when you can really hear what's going on. And my voice is different from his, but this is not an Al Harlow solo album, and the few industry insiders, the engineers that have heard it, and the mix down people and the mastering people that have heard it, they've said, wow, well, it's Prism all right, but it's just new and different. Like, there's a couple of pieces of music that are as big as Armageddon. There's one song on there called 100 Years. It's actually 8 minutes long. And there's another one called The Rock, which is over 5 minutes long. So there's a couple of pretty large pieces of music, but it's 2008. It's still kind of lean and mean. So I'm just hoping that that the fans who know the band well are going to listen to little bits and pieces and say, oh, there's a trail of breadcrumbs that takes me all the way back to Armageddon, or this kind of thing, and a few traces here and there. And at the same time, we've explored some new stuff. There's a Moroccan influenced song on there with sitars and tablas and stuff. There's a song called Tangiers, and to me, these are areas that Prism could have and should have explored all along, like just exotic kind of locales and stuff like that. We can take people on a little voyage. And I think to myself, now, is this something that Prism could have done? And then I look at it and go, yeah, that's within the parameters of what you can do and still call it Prism,
Well, that's a great way to look at it. I mean, you and the band have always been fantastic, top-notch musicians, and the early work of Prism, and from what it sounds like, the material coming up has always been really a nice, vast scape of music. You've never really pigeonholed yourself to one genre or one sound, which is really interesting. I mean, you don't hear any Prism tribute bands or anything like that. I'm wondering if that's the key for the vocals, or if it's just Prism music is hard to play for a lot of people.
Well, I'll say one thing. It's not easy to sing because I remember when we were making the records way back when, the first records, and we were consciously on this sort of helium-induced vocal sound because Ron could do it, And so poor Ron, we'd say, "Hey, that sounds great, Ron. Now let's move the key up one key higher and we'll try it again." And Ron would go, no, but we'd do it, So, yeah, the songs were all pitched pretty high. And, of course, I got to sing those songs every night. So now I'm thinking to myself, gee, why did I insist upon making them so high? But that's all right. I'm comfortable there. And yeah, keeping that identity in the sound is something that that we're very conscious of too. And on the new album, Big Black Sky, we actually brought back a couple of old familiar names. John Hall, who was the original keyboard player, came back and did some beautiful orchestrations and some really nice keyboard work on a couple of the larger pieces of music on 100 Years and the two ballads that are on there. And also a name that the fans would know is, as you mentioned, Jim Valance, who went on to a career with Aerosmith and Bryan Adams and Bon Jovi, writing songs for all those people. Well, Jim came back and donated a song and on the new one, so it's kind of neat, you know. We've brought the team back together again.
Yeah, that's really exciting when everybody comes back and puts their cards on the table for the sake of the music. You know, check egos at the door, or past's forgotten and that sort of thing. Because it's been a long time, things happen, but when it comes back for the music, it really makes it that much more special.
And that's you nailed it. That's what it is now. I mean, there's no agendas. No one's trying to, be a rock star or get on the cover of Rolling Stone. Now, when you're young, of course, you don't quite have those self-editing skills. You know what I mean? You don't know where it might lead. So, as Jim Valance himself said a while ago, he said, when we were kids, we had pretty big egos, and our songs were our babies, and we insisted upon everything being our way, and we were all like that. I think that's just part of the energy of youth. But now we're a little more reflective, and I think we're actually enjoying it more now. And as you say, it really is about the music now. We don't care whether it's, we hope that people hear it and it can reach a wide audience. But, it's just not about being famous or being a rock star anymore. It really is for the love of the music. I know that sounds corny, but that's kind of the motivating factor at this point.
Well, Prism's always been a popular band on both sides of the border, so I'm sure any new material is going to be very well received. And speaking of which, you guys have a huge catalog to draw from when you're performing live. Do you drop any bombs? Do you little hints of some unrecorded or some soon-to-be-released into the set?
We do, yeah. We slide 2 or 3 of the brand new ones on the Big Black Sky album in, and we've actually had fun in the last couple of years sliding in some B-sides and some album cuts. We try to make it interesting for the audience, because a lot of people in Canada, especially, they've seen the band a few times, and they know when Spaceship Superstar is coming up in the show and how we're going to end with Armageddon. All that stuff is a lot of the fans know that, but we try to throw some surprises in between. Like sometimes we'll play Cover Girl, that song we wrote for Dorothy Stratton. And once in a while, one of the guys will say, "Hey, how come we're not playing, like Nickels and Dimes was kind of an FM radio hit for us a long time ago." And so sometimes we dust off a few obscurities of our old songs, and when we do that, I look out in the audience and I can see, people's eyes light up and they go, "Oh, they haven't done that one recently." So yeah, we try to have fun with it.
Well, that keeps it fresh for you guys too.
It really does, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but right now there's a couple of guys in the band who are insisting that we have to play a song called Party Line off the Young and Restless album. And I got to tell the truth, we've never done that one live, so we'll be learning it for the first time.
Well, that does keep you honest.
It sure does that, yeah. I have to learn my own words.
Yeah, exactly, revisiting it all. Well, Al, I'll tell you, this has been fantastic. I could talk with you all night long. Thank you so much for taking the time to visit us here, and we look really forward to seeing you real soon.
Well, thanks very much, Greg. We look forward to seeing everybody in Wetaskiwin, and let's just rock the roof off the place.
That sounds just great. Thanks again, Al Harlow of Prism.